Thanks for tuning in to the Auburn Business Ventures Goldmine Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Monroe. I'm here to extract and present the stories of local business owners and entrepreneurs. This episode of the podcast is with Alan Lee of Honest Lee Handyman Services and the Handyman Journey YouTube channel, where Alan shares his knowledge and skills within the handyman industry. We had a great talk regarding having more purpose in your work and what it looks like to think bigger. Very good. Okay, welcome to the show, Alan Lee.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. And so, Honest Lee Handyman is the name of your business?
That's me.
So why don't you tell us about it?
So Honest Lee Handyman, we started January of 2017, so we've been going now for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And really our mission is, our mission kind of as a family that kind of leads into that is to be hope healers. So we started this with a vision of, people needing this handyman work. Like, I just started doing the nights and weekends and really found that people needed someone who was honest and worked with integrity. Right. And I felt like we could provide that, so we kind of started going out on that path. And that's just kind of been always our mission of helping people out to get what they need done, like more than anything. Like, right. That's our biggest,
Right. And so I noticed you said it started on nights and weekends. So was it start as like a side hustle that you kind of did? Did you have a job before that? And then you kind of transitioned into it slowly. And how did that how did that go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I was working as an automotive technician. Okay. I went to college for that. That was my career. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing that. And I actually wanted to go to a personal development seminar that my wife is a part of an at-home business, and she was told by people in that we should go to this seminar. And for about 2 years, we said, oh, no, we can't afford that. We don't need that, given all these excuses, right? But then finally, we're like, well, if we want something to change in our life, we should make some sort of decision, right? So we decided just to try this thing out. But I thought it was going to be a complete wash. I thought it was like kind of a get-rich-quick scheme, something where, you just throw your money away. So we bought the tickets on our credit card because we couldn't afford it. Right. And I'm like, well, I need to figure out a way to recoup this money. So my wife and I started brainstorming of ideas of what can we offer people to make money. And so I just made up this flyer offering handyman services because I've always kind of been a handy guy, right. And started doing handyman services and fell in love with it. And when we went to that seminar, I thought it was going to be a complete wash, you know? Right. But it was completely something crazy. And the biggest
it was good. It was a good seminar.
It was amazing. Like 2 hours into the seminar, I was bawling my eyes out. Like, it's kind of weird to say, but it's like I had some stuff in me that was holding me back in life. And so I left that seminar wanting to start the handyman business full time. Like that,
Right.
It gave
just
me
like,
kind
let's
of
dive in. Why not? Yeah. Just seize the day. Let's go.
And so it gave me kind of this entrepreneurial. Well, I always had this entrepreneurial thought, but it gave me the fire to do it. And what I realized was there was things in my past that were holding me back. Right. Like things of my childhood that I told myself of why I could not go out and do something on my own.
It's interesting how the entrepreneurial fire is something that you described it as a thought, but then when you removed all the boundaries and all the walls, or the people at the seminar helped you realize that you just need to get over those things, in order to ignite. And all of a sudden it's like, well, that just changed my life. Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how many limits we impose on ourselves, so that's really great. And so then you kind of made a turn and you dedicated, or you at least started to dedicate to the handyman business. Yeah. And from what I understand, from what Charlie told me, is you've started getting involved in YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah. So about 2 years ago or so, I started up a YouTube channel, and it was basically, I saw other people that had YouTube channels, and I kept telling my wife, I'm like, oh, I'd love to do that. Kind of the same thing of where before we went to this seminar, I'd be like, oh, I'd love to do that, but all these excuses, and my wife's like, well, just do it. Just start. So I went out to my tool trailer and just got my cell phone, and it was absolutely the worst video ever. The first video I shot about 2 years ago. And from that, this passion kind of ignited of helping other people find the same thing that I had at that seminar of like, you can do this, you can create something on your own. So I've created this YouTube channel basically, and that's launched into a whole nother consulting business where now I help other handymen start up their own handyman businesses.
Right. So. That's interesting because, there's plenty of people on YouTube who, kind of document a project they're working on. And that's actually really useful. Maybe it's you're doing something on your car or even in your like a home project in your kitchen or bathroom. And this is how you replace a sink,
Right.
And that stuff's super useful. Like I'm on YouTube all the time learning for free, like very useful, practical stuff.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, you had to know somebody that could teach it to you if you were lucky, or hire somebody. And so what I'm understanding is you're not just documenting projects, but rather you more of a consulting role.
Right. Yeah.
Where you help, is it other handymen?
Yeah, other handymen. So yeah, I have, I think 20,000 subscribers right now, and it's all handymen. Yeah.
Right.
And the one thing that I found was fairly successful was creating like DIY videos like that, where how to replace kitchen faucet, but actually doing it in a way that shows real world problems, because I always hated like videos you watch and someone does it and it turns out beautiful and you're like, wow, that person obviously is super skilled.
Right. But how?
And yeah, so I created this, I call it a vlog, right? So it's a word I made up. So it's like
an acronym, like.
Yeah. So it's called like a work log, rather than a vlog.
Right. Oh, okay.
And some people absolutely hate the word. It's really funny. They're like, this is the worst word since moist, So, but it's fun. And so I do like a DIY video, but I show and talk about all of my mistakes, all of my miscuts, all of my mispricing and things like that. And I find that that's been helping other handymen too, to understand that as a handyman, as a business owner, it doesn't always go smoothly.
Right. So like, it's just storytelling.
Right. Yeah.
So you're incorporating storytelling in there, which is obviously, arguably one of the most powerful forms of, information sharing.
Right.
When you put it into a form of a story, it's like the majority of people just absorb it better. And also sharing things that are not like just the wins.
Right. Yeah.
And like, I was charging this for this, and then I realized, so it could go either way. You could, I was charging too little, and nobody valued my service, or I was charging too much, and nobody was hiring me.
Right.
Yeah. So that's great. So 20,000. That's, I think most people would say like that's a pretty successful YouTube page. Look, there's pages with millions.
Right. Yeah.
But still, like, 20,000 is pretty good, and for 3 years in?
Well, we started YouTube 2 years ago, and we're 3 years. We're going on our 4th year of the handyman business. Yeah. So.
There's only so many handymen, but that doesn't mean all of your subscribers necessarily are the handyman.
Yeah. Well, and we have a lot of people that they are longing to start a handyman business. Like we have, like a guy reached out to me the other day. He's a school teacher in like Alabama, and he's like, "Hey, I was thinking about quitting that and start a handyman business." So, stuff like that happens all the time, which is pretty exciting.
And so is that really so you have the two sides of your business, right? The actual handyman business that still exists.
Yes.
And then the YouTube channel and like its direction and where it's going.
Yeah.
And what is the goal? Well, what is your vision or mission with the YouTube channel besides just like helping people? But is there like anything specific? Like, is it helping, like handymen get up and running, or is it kind of like all of the above, like up and running, operating better? Like, is there anything specific that you'd like to be known for at least?
Right. Well, our vision comes back to what we talked about at the beginning here was our vision as a family is to be hope healers, so whatever we can do to restore hope with people. So right now we're doing really in-depth like marketing classes because with all this kind of coronavirus stuff going on, there's a lot of people that are either out of work or struggling to find work as handymen because they rely solely on like word of mouth.
Right.
And they've never really put any money into marketing. So we've been doing a bunch of online marketing courses to really restore hope to these people.
And what sort of things are you teaching in those courses that you've built?
Well, the first session is mindset, which is pretty awesome, which is that first session that I went through at that seminar that made me bawl my eyes out of figuring out that it's this difference of a victim mentality or a champion mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's at the core of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing and coming to the realization that we all struggle with a victim mentality,
mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, we need to overcome that with a champion mentality. And
right.
that's the only way that we're going to succeed.
That's really a brilliant foundation, especially in marketing, because I think a lot of people hit mental roadblocks in marketing because mm-hmm. it's like they look at it as all of this work that you have to put in mm-hmm. with like these like ethereal unknown results.
Right.
And really it's like, it's not like they're imaginary. Like they'll be there. Mm-hmm. Like you're gonna get out what you put in. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you at least do it somewhat correctly.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
Sure.
So that's great. So you start with mindset.
Yep. Yeah, and then we move into kind of the thought of like the whole overarching thought of marketing, that it's a long-term game. Mm-hmm. You know, and a lot of times, like for me, when I first started my business, like Yelp wanted $300 a month to advertise. Right. And I'm like, well, I'm not even bringing in any money yet, but right. they want me to advertise. So it's a scary thought to right. pay for something and not have the results right in hand. Mm-hmm. So I teach that, you know, most marketing doesn't pay off for the first or for about 90 days. Minimum. So you need to you need to be in it for at least 90 days to right. see any results. And most guys out there that I've interviewed and found is that they will only try advertising for about a week, and then they'll stop it. Which right. is a victim mentality right there. But a lot of it's like a lack of brand awareness. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, let's just say, you know, Joe the plumber mm-hmm. is going to run some ads, mm-hmm. you know, on one platform or another. Right. And it's like, maybe he's been in town for 5 years, like he moved to town 5 years ago, and mm-hmm. he's just been doing here and there, word of mouth, right? Client acquisition. It's like, that's not brand awareness. Like, mm-hmm. the only people who know about you are the people that basically have hired you, right? Because they heard about you from one person. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not seeing you on a podcast or right. There's no brand awareness like ads running like continual mm-hmm. like for 90 days. Like you really have to saturate like the eyeballs of people multiple times. Yeah. For that brand awareness to happen, and like the brand awareness is like where they're going to get all that leverage, mm-hmm. and so it's kind of. It takes a lot of mental energy mm-hmm. to actually slow down your life, mm-hmm. you know, if you're running a business or whatever. And it's like, slow it down to where you can actually think what is actually going to work and get the attention, right? The engagement, mm-hmm. and like for anybody to care. Right. You know, like that's a lot of time and energy. And for sure. Yeah, it's kind of like I equate marketing with like political campaigns. You know, mm-hmm. it's like, I think you need like your name needs to come across someone's face or mind or whatever like 7 times for them to remember you. Right. So when people go to the ballot, they may not know anything about politics, but they're like, oh, I've seen that guy. I've seen that guy's name 7 times, so I'll vote for him or whatever. Right. Like, you know? The familiarity. Yeah, and I think that's kind of like brand awareness in a sense. Yeah, you know? Well, it is. And so I think people need to get that established with their business. Right. Yeah. Okay, so and all right, cool. And I just want to hear more about your. Mm-hmm. You may as well tell all the handymen that are going to be listening, you know, about right. what you have to offer too. Uh-huh. So what's like step 3 or? Yeah. So so step 3 is getting into what I call like a marketing funnel, you know, and mm-hmm. I think at the root of that is your website, right. and the website needs to have a email capture form, you mm-hmm. know, so that people can go there and easily request, you know, an estimate, right? Yeah. And so that does one of 2 things, and I think you need to get a professional website for sure. I mean, you don't just go to Wix and set one up yourself if you don't know what you're doing. Right. And so that's got to have, you know, a way for people to contact you, whether, you know, that's 24/7. So you could be working on a job while someone's sending you an email. Right. I think that trumps, you know, your phone call, because having your phone ringing off the hook all day doesn't help anyone, because you need to focus on the work that you need to do. That's right. It hurts you operationally. Yeah. Especially if you're a smaller operation. Mm-hmm. You don't have a secretary at the office right. or whatever. Yeah. And that's something that Charlie and I talk about all the time. Yeah.
Just time management. It's like, okay, mm-hmm. so, you know, where should we be focused? Should we be focused on fielding phone calls, or mm-hmm. is our job, you know, is my job making sure the books are all in order? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I can't make sure the books are all in order if we're taking phone calls. Right. You know, so right. it's that balancing game of doing what your your skill is focused on, and then offloading
or systematizing it.
Yeah.
But I think the main problem with that is a lot of handymen feel stuck because they're only one guy. You know,
well, that's
so
why you systematize it.
Yeah, so that's why like this whole marketing thing. That's the first like a successful business. Like I love how Michael Gerber says in the book The E-Myth Revisited. I
still need to read that.
You should read that.
Yeah, it's been recommended like 800 times.
Yeah, it changed it changed my whole outlook on business, and it got my business to where it is today. And you know, I love how he says, you know, that big businesses, when they start out as small businesses, they don't start out thinking as small businesses. They start thinking as big businesses.
Right.
So they do, like when IBM first started, they did what a big business would do, not what a small business would do. So I think that is the trap that we get stuck in, is we're like, oh, we're only a small business. We don't need that, or we don't need that. But
I think that's rampant. That thought is rampant.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I talk to a lot of business owners, you know, and it's almost like the thought of marketing and doing things like a big business. Obviously, look, there's budget limitations. I get that. But there's like, even you could spend, you know, a few $1,000s, like let's just say like roughly like $5,000 on a website. You hire somebody to make you a professional website. Nothing super fancy, but executed perfectly. Okay, there's all the amateur mistakes aren't in there.
Right.
That's getting you in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, back to what you're saying. Because what happens is when people like fire these things up themselves, they're like, oh, well, I can build it for myself for free. I'll just do it this weekend. It's like you're taking this thing that's super valuable, or should be super valuable to you in your business, and you're totally just neglecting it. You know? Right. So like you're saying, if you're on the job, or even if you're sleeping, like people should be able to get in contact with you
all the time
without having to call you. And a lot of things, people don't like to call. Like if you just have like a tiny landing page and it just says like, you know, Joe's Plumbing Business, and then it's like a phone number. Cool. But they could also just get that on your Google listing. Right.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, it's weird. And I like to say, like, it's good to be using your website as the center. And then I think where you were probably about to go with this is like then establishing all the funnels around it.
Wow, did you take my marketing course? Oh, you read my book.
Well, we're a marketing company.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. So, okay, well, that's great that this aligns with a marketing company.
Right.
That's awesome.
And so I think a great thing for handyman, and you would know this obviously better than me, but I'm going to take another assumption, is that like teaching them how to use platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Like I don't know if that's part of it or not, but I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think a lot of people that want to get into the same business are maybe a little older, so they may not have adapted to the whole, you know, technology change when it happens. So they may not be on Facebook. They may not know anything about Instagram. So teaching about that is a huge thing as well. You know, and I mean, one of the fundamental things that we teach is like create a Facebook business page, like at the very minimum. And you might as well create an Instagram account, because you post on Instagram, it automatically, you know, and in every post, you know, post a picture with of yourself, of what you're working on. I mean, of yourself is great. And, you know, put a little description of what you're doing, and then you can request a free quote and then your website. Like everything needs to direct to your website.
Right. I like I like the detail you threw in there of including yourself, like your person.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. The thing is, especially around here, we live in a small town. Like I swear there's like a good handful of people that I've never met in my entire life, but I've seen them in public like 100 times.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I know who, like, I've seen that person 100 times, but I've never met them.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
I think there's something powerful to that. Like me personally, if I see a face, I never forget it. And I don't know if that's just like a unique thing to me, or if that's like,
it's there's definitely recognition. I mean, that we're primed for facial recognition. That's what how our brains work, you know? And so having that person attached to the business is instead of like, oh, there's a building, it's like, oh, there's a person. That's I can make a relationship with a person. I can't, like a building, it's
the
just
contents
walls.
change inside it.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yeah, like for our business, like listings on like Yelp or Google or whatever, my face is like we have a logo, we have a professional logo, but my face is the cover photo of all that, you know. And when I show up, people are like, "Oh, you look just like your photo," or so I think that draws them in, it attracts them.
It's the human element.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, personally, I'm actually quite a bit of an introvert, and I don't seek out like interpersonal interaction like for energy. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of just fine for the most part in my own inner world, which is like pretty expansive, you know. And so like I'll just like be fine with that. But you know, I do really love people though. On the other hand, and it's like there's something nice about having a personal relationship with the local businesses that you interact with, and you know, when we host the meetup too, you know, I get people coming in and you're like, they know because of like our marketing materials, like my face is in not every single piece or whatever, but enough to where they show up and they're looking for that one guy
Right.
that they know is supposed to be there, so they know they're in the right place.
Right.
Like it's kind of like a rail to grab onto,
Right.
you know, when
Yeah.
you, because you know there's a lot of social anxiety with that kind of stuff, and
Yeah, like when you go to a party, you want to be there and you want to at least know one person.
Right.
And even if you just barely know them, you're gonna hang out with them the whole party.
right. Well, what's the question when your buddy, you know, says, hey, you want to go to this thing with me, and you're like, well, who's gonna be
Right,
there?
who's gonna be there? Yeah.
So that's great. And now I know one of my relatives owns a concrete business, and he's like killing it right now.
That's awesome.
And a lot of it, I mean, it's pretty simple, like Facebook, like organic Facebook marketing. Like I feel like with Tommy's business, like if they like went hard on an actual campaign, like they'd have to be prepared
for the influx of work because they're doing so. I mean, they're so busy with just the organic, non-paid material.
That's awesome.
Well, they do nice work, take pictures of it, make posts about it, and then, you know, all the family and friends, you know, like it and share it and whatever. And it's like, that's all great. But it's like, can you imagine something like that, which like that's not supposed to work that well.
Right. Right.
I mean, if it does, like you're hit the jackpot. Like just doing organic posts and having that be your like main source of traffic and like interest in your business, like that's, I think ideally that's where you'd want to be, you know. But where was I going with this? If you went and took some energy and put it into like reputation marketing and building, so like really pumping in and building up Google reviews, Yelp reviews specifically, you know, even like every single customer that's happy with your work gives you a 5-star review.
Right.
And then building those like reviews into an actual like campaign, it's like, oh my gosh, like you're not going to be able to stop the customers from calling you.
Yeah, and that's one of the amazing things about marketing and business in general. Like if you narrow down those systems and have a way to like handle the increased volume, right? Then there's no limit to your business. Like you can literally explode and take over, create an empire, in a sense. You know, it's pretty amazing.
I think people get hung up on the chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah.
Do I market first or do I expand first?
Right.
Or do I, you know, and it's like, well, I don't know if there's a good answer. It's like, how about you just, it's, in my opinion, it's better to have people lining up that you can't get to all of them right away than it is to have a bunch of overhead and then trying to fill in the income stream to accommodate for all your overhead.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way I think about things. Like, you can adapt to more business because the money's there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, that is the hard part is, and that's always, I think that's the biggest thing is like, where do I start? And a lot of guys, they get caught up on that question. They end up not starting, you know, because they don't know what to do. But it's like sometimes in life, like, it's just do something.
Right, do something. Start. Like, there's a book. What is it? Who's the author? The title of the book is just like Start. Like his whole argument is just like, just start. It doesn't matter. Just go.
Yeah, just do something.
John Acuff.
Oh, John Acuff. Is it Acuff or Acuff?
I don't actually. If you ever watch this episode, I'm sorry. 'Cause I don't
Well, I don't know. If John Acuff, if you're watching it, I mean, we'd love to hear.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce your last name?
But anyway, yeah, it's like and it's how easy can you make it, right? So people getting caught up in the details.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this, and this. Oh, I don't know. It's like, well, isn't that the exciting part? Is that you don't know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
in a
mean,
sense.
obviously, sure, it would be nice to just like go to Walmart and pick out like this like shiny product that says $1 million business and be like, yeah, I'm gonna take this one,
Right.
you know, and just like boop,
Yeah.
wheel it out to your car. But the journey is something special.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure. Yeah, but I mean, it's hard when you get down to reality, because in reality, like, I mean, if you got, you know, a wife and 3 kids, you have to support them, and so you
Right.
can't just like go on this willy-nilly thing that you think might work,
Right.
You know, but at the end of the day, that's kind of how success happens. You kind of just try something, and then if you fail, you adapt and you just retry another thing.
hey, it's
Yeah.
not like I know how to podcast like
Right.
professionally or whatever. I just like watched a lot of Joe Rogan,
There you go.
You
There you
know.
go. Joe Rogan. Yeah.
and it's like, I
So
mean,
should we have cigars then?
I don't know. I want that Spotify deal. But yeah, and you know, it's funny, when we started our business, we actually, it wasn't just the one Auburn Business Ventures brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had, you know, our company had a separate brand for the web design and marketing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then we realized after a while, there was so much confusion, like brand identity crisis going on, where it was
Right.
like, hey, aren't you doing that web design thing? Like, aren't you doing that Auburn Business Ventures thing?
Mhm.
Like,
what are you doing? Yeah.
well, just, it was like one or the other. Like, it was
Mhm.
never, nobody could ever really understand that we had a business and we were doing this like entrepreneurship community
Mhm.
like project thing. And then eventually I got tired of it and I bounced it off Charlie. I was like, why don't we just get rid of like the brand around our business and just offer it as like a service within the Auburn Business Ventures brand and have everything be
Mm-hmm.
kind of like tied together? And it's like, well, that's an easy thing to communicate now.
Right.
And you know, if there's anybody out there that likes to complicate things like me, stop it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
Overcomplicate things. That's
In like operating out of fear, like, oh,
Mhm.
well, if I, you know, do this or that, then people are going to think this or that. It's like, no, just do what you need to do
mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like stare at it
Mm-hmm.
and run straight at it,
Yeah.
you know, and just, you know, if you're doing it like in a morally appropriate fashion,
Mm-hmm.
like, you're going to be fine. Like, maybe, like, everybody's like, I feel like there's a lot of people worried about like haters and stuff when they're
Mhm.
they're gonna try their new idea and they're like, well, what if people don't like? It's like, well, first of all, you'll never know,
Mhm.
and it'll never happen if you never try.
Mm-hmm.
And even if somebody doesn't like it, it's like there's 7 billion other people in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, you just gotta, it's like the Gary Vee thing, you just got to not give a damn
Right.
like
Right.
about like
Yeah.
what.
Yep. That's true. And for me, I mean, I struggled with that a lot, especially the first year and a half or so of YouTube, you know. And I think that was before me and my family really sat down and created this like identity, like we talked about before, of being hope healers, you know.
Right.
I was leading with I was trying to lead with why I was doing it, but what people only saw was the money aspect of it. They're like, "Oh, you're just trying to take our money," right?
Right.
But now I've understood like how to lead with the reason, you know. And so it's like what's that saying? Like, people don't know, or people don't care what you know until they know why you care, you know.
Oh,
So
like that.
like it's important to tell people why you're doing something, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
I posted the other day, like I think the bigger part of business is why you're doing it than what you actually do, you know. Because if you know why you do something, like the
Mhm.
whats will just come into play, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. It's conviction.
Mhm.
And I think another thing, and you could probably relate to this, is like providing value. It's like having the why there. Like on our website, we have our who we are, our mission, and our vision, just like
Mhm.
laid out immediately right there.
That's awesome.
Just no confusion.
Mm-hmm.
This is who we are and what we,
Mm-hmm.
what our why.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's right there.
Yeah.
The other thing is like being very quick to deliver value
Mm-hmm.
to pretty much anybody, like they don't even have to be somebody that's actually going to be a potential client even. Even just talking about your business to other people, there is valuable things that you can communicate to these people that still might help them and kind of put a nice flavor in their mouth.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? But like, so with your whole kind of brand identity being like the Hope Healers, it's like you could do that with any business.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have a consulting business for Handyman, but it applies to everything, you know,
right,
in a sense.
Well, you start with mindset.
Right. Mindset. You know, victim versus champion mentality. Like that equates to everything. That was the thing I think I needed to hear.
It's really actually, when I'm starting to think about it, it's kind of a brilliant combination of industry and approach, because the industry is approachable, right? It's not like computer engineering. It's not rocket science.
Right.
You know, it's like work with your hands, fix things that are like in your life, fix things for other people. Like, there's a lot of people who've been fixing things all their life, but that's like never what their job was.
Right.
You know, and so I don't want to it's not like it's any lesser than any other thing. It's more that it's just like approachable by like,
it applies to everybody. Like everybody, you know, everybody has to live in a place where it's going to need, like they can, it's super relatable.
You know how proud my wife is when she fixes something?
Right.
She didn't have to ask for my help.
Right.
You know, and it's like, sometimes I'm pretty impressed. I'm like, wow, honey, that was good. You know? And so anyway, it's approachable. And also the way you're going about it, starting with mindset and kind of being like you've been saying, a hope healer is like, there's a lot of people that are not going to go back to their jobs.
I know, it's crazy time.
After they lost them. It's like this huge, I think it might be kind of like a big awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, wow, sure. I was miserable doing what I was doing. And now that I've had like a 2-month reset. Right. What do I really want to do that?
Right. What am I really doing with my life?
Yeah.
And what can I do where I'll actually enjoy it? You know.
Very
interesting.
Yeah. I hope. This is like a big hope, but like I hope people lean into happiness. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But I think a lot of that, what's going to open up from that, is not just like meaningless, menial work. You know, I think the work that we do is important in our life.
Yeah.
You know, and you should align. Or your work should align with what's good for you.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to because I think most people, when they're kids, like they're creative, they're imaginative, they think about what the future could be. But then when reality hits, right, like you graduate from college and now you got to get a job, or graduate from high school, you got to get a job, or you have a baby, or you get married, and you have responsibilities that take over. So your imaginative thought starts getting drowned out by reality, and you're like, I just need to take a job, any job, even if I hate it, to pay the bills. And I think people, they forsake their creativity or entrepreneurial spirit that I think is in most people, for comfort, and hopefully something like this will awaken that in them, like you say.
Yeah, and it's not in that, and that's not even saying that everybody is or should be like an entrepreneur, but you can monetize almost any like hobby these days, right? You know what I mean? And there's a certain obviously there's different levels of creativity, right, in every person. But my theory is that every single person enjoys engaging in creativity. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Right. So whether they're actually hyper creative or not is not really the point. I think it's you might meet the least creative person in the world, and you go over to their house for dinner or something, and they're still proud to show you like, oh, like I actually built that deck. Right. To my own liking, maybe. And that's takes some creativity, you know, and it's fun. It's fun to create. And I think that's a core, like human trait. Or maybe even I made up this recipe. Like there's creativity in all things, for sure. Yeah. It's part of
like you were saying, it's part of human life, you know, and because if you're standing still, you're moving backwards.
Yes.
You know, and so you,
Right.
in a sense, it's like you always have to be, like if you're going to get meaning out of life, like you're always going to have to be birthing newness.
Yeah.
You know, and so that aspect is, you know, maybe you're not going to come up with $1 million idea, but you're always going to be able to come up with something that nobody else has come up with in a specific area.
Yeah.
Or your own unique way.
Right, and your own unique spin, your own unique perspective on.
Do you talk about that with your clients, your consulting clients at all? Like, I'm wondering how you could incorporate that. Just the topic of creativity.
Right. Yeah, we haven't really gotten into that. You know,
How new is the program?
I've had the
Ish.
Handyman Journey consulting business for maybe about a year and a half. Yeah.
Did you write a book too?
Yeah, I just wrote a book. It just came out last Monday, actually.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, Jason
A little
Call.
over a week ago.
I saw Jason Call.
Yeah. He forwarded the book, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And I saw that on social media somewhere. I think Facebook.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
talking-
we were repping it like crazy over the last weekend, trying to get it to Amazon bestseller and all that. So.
That's he's actually gonna be on the show later today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exciting.
So.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him. I actually haven't met him before, and
Yeah.
it's kind of long overdue.
Yeah, I love getting together with the guy. Every time we get together, something cool happens. You know.
Oh,
It's
that's
just-
good. I
it's
love
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so about the book, what's the overview?
It's essentially kind of what the marketing class that we've been doing on Facebook
Like
is
just in
based
written
on
form?
that, in written form.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically that is like my curriculum that I teach, you know.
Okay.
So it's the Handyman Marketing Handbook. So it's a quick little handbook that I think every handyman needs to get, just kind of like a quick synopsis of.
You can pick that up on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazon. Yep.
And okay? Well, I think everybody uses Amazon.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better. I can't think of a
And,
better.
and it's in Kindle version too, or whatever. So if people want that, we just got that. I had to figure that out. That was a whole thing. Like writing a book is one thing, but then you got to figure out how to publish it.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
I actually know
lot of work.
nothing.
I know.
I knew
about-
nothing
I know
either.
nothing about
so
that.
it was like, yeah, mentally exhausting.
Well, if I ever decide to write a book, I guess I'm gonna have to hit you up.
Or just YouTube it. You know?
That's true. That's how I
Yeah.
do everything else, I
Yeah.
guess.
But yeah.
Well, that's great. So is it in like chapter form?
It's not really it doesn't really have like 1 or 2 chapters, but it's like segments kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Cool.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Because it's more of like a handbook than a novel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like on this. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And how often are you making videos on your YouTube channel right now? Ish.
Right now, maybe only 2 a month. Like
Okay.
not like I would love to do it like once a week is my goal. When I first started, I did it 3 times a week. And that was mainly because I call them competitors, but other handymen that were doing YouTube, they were doing it once a week. So I'm like,
Right.
I got to trump that. So,
Right.
but my life has been busy with everything else. So,
Yeah, I would just be careful not to fall into the trap of like competing on a certain metric.
well, that's what it was at the beginning. And that's when I really struggled with haters and
Right.
a lot of that bad mentality of,
Right.
you know, because I was comparing myself to other people. And at the end of the day, I think where true strength and true wisdom and like stamina comes from is understanding why I believe, you know, why we were created,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
what we were created for. And since coming to that realization of I'm created to be a hope healer, and
Right.
it doesn't matter what anyone else says,
Right.
because I'm here to help bring hope to
Right.
people.
And this is like your medium to do it is your handyman business.
right. That's just what I fell into, you know.
I think that is actually kind of like a fundamental formula. Like you mentioned the why earlier and how important that is. And the why and as like your North Star. And however you fill in to make that happen is kind of, that's what you should just be in alignment with, that works best for you.
Right.
Right. You're just going to get there so much more effectively and efficiently.
Definitely.
And so when you're making these videos right now, currently, like where you are now, because obviously it's probably changed over time, are you still doing instructionals, like DIY instructionals, or are you doing more, you're gearing it more towards the consulting stuff?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I try and do a mix. So I do vlogs, and it's been kind of up in the air the last few months, but I used to try and do like a vlog 1 week, and then I know it's a funny word, isn't it? But
it's just because you roll it off so casually, it gets me.
Yeah. One of my followers in Texas, he tried to make a video, and he's like, I'm gonna do a vlog. He's like, sorry, I'm not California enough. I can't do that. So.
Man.
But so I try and do a vlog 1 week, and then like a marketing or a pricing video the next week, and then a vlog, and then another kind of consulting type business.
That's good. Yeah.
But as far as like viewership, the vlogs get much more views, because I think other handymen, they want to learn, like they learn aspects of how to do jobs quicker from actually seeing other people work. So
sure.
Yeah, and that's more fun because I also incorporate consulting stuff in that. Like I talk about my pricing, or I talk about how I could have done this a little bit more efficiently.
Okay.
So
you're really letting them in your head when you're working on something.
Oh yeah, probably too much in a sense.
Right.
So
I don't know though.
But
I think we're in the information age. I think that the more information you share, the better positioned you are. Mm-hmm. Because you're a resource. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if like other people are doing the same thing as you. It's like you're being that book in the library for somebody who's interested in reading it.
Right. That's true.
And like you're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like just because somebody else as far as negativity goes,
right?
Just because they're jealous that you're doing something or whatever, mm-hmm. that just has no bearing on you helping other people mm-hmm. and moving forward in your business.
Yeah.
Like if they want to like benefit from it, they can, mm-hmm. or they can like be puffy about it.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's funny. I've made one of my most popular videos is the 5 worst handyman jobs I've ever done.
Oh yeah.
And I also turned that into like a podcast. I recently started a podcast, but
what's it called?
It's the Handyman Journey podcast.
Got it.
But I just kind of recreate YouTube stuff into that. So
yeah, that's smart.
Repurpose stuff. But
yeah.
So that's one of my most popular videos, and in that I talk about my 5 worst handyman jobs, and most of those revolve around mistakes, mm-hmm. either mostly by me, but sometimes there's like customer issues and stuff like that. And,
you're probably really good at titling videos because obviously like there's like a formula with titling videos mm-hmm. where it's like you almost want it to imply one thing. Yeah. But
it's like you want a borderline on the edge of clickbait, which it's kind of sad that we got to use that, but that's kind of.
But it's intriguing.
It's intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
clickbait is like, Donald Trump harasses child over ice cream flavor.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah. It's like what, or clickbait goes into Android beats Apple in this one key feature.
Right. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And what's funny about that video and a lot of other videos for that matter, because I'm very open in these videos, is sometimes the people who have a big ego and things mm-hmm. like that, and they'll rail on me. They're like, "Oh, you're stupid," or "Why'd you do this?" or you should have known that.
I would never touch granite like that.
Right. Okay. But some guys are like, "Wow, this is amazing," because I'm dealing with this exact same stuff, and I think so. Now I used to struggle with taking that negativity, but mm-hmm. now that I have that mindset, it's like,
what helped you get over it?
Well, we took a class by my good friend Brad Harmsworth. He's a great. He has a business called the Watchman Consulting, and he's basically kind of some people would call it like a prepper mindset, but it's more than that. It's like kind of having what he teaches is like looking at things from a different point of view.
Okay.
So like most people look at something this way. How can we turn it and look at it maybe a little bit differently?
It helps you shift your perspective.
Yeah. So he did a class on legacy mapping, and it was all about creating a long-term legacy for your family, and
mm-hmm.
at the core of that was figuring out or asking God, like, why did he create us as a family? Why did he put us together specifically?
Right.
And what maybe what things did he give us that he wants us to bring to the world? You know. And we really sat down as family. We came up with that Hope Healers, and so that's
mm-hmm.
really what had the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just fairly recently. And so now I look at that negativity, and I'm like, I don't really care what you say, because if I can bring hope to one person,
right,
I have done what God
created
me to
your
do.
negativity is not part of my mission.
Right. So, yeah.
My mission's over there, and that's the direction I'm going.
Yeah.
And like, you're going to get tired chasing me like a little yappy dog.
Right.
Like, you're going to get bored because I'm just going to ignore you.
Yeah.
You know, that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's an amazing revelation because that's something I've struggled with my whole life, you know, of taking other people's criticism in a good way. I've never been able to do that.
Interesting.
Know? So,
I think most people struggle with criticism, and by most, I'm talking like a solid 80% of people.
I'd say probably like 99% of people.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'd say the psychopaths have zero problem with
they're just
criticism.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, but
I think you can get to me, but
well, you can get to me too. I'm not invincible for sure.
Right. I'm just thinking about like when we started the meetup a couple years ago. One of the first pieces of foundation work that we laid down was like, look, we're here as business owners in a community to talk about our like weak points and how to strengthen them or alleviate them or mitigate them or just get rid of them altogether. And it was like, it was kind of like finding something that didn't exist.
Right.
You know, and so it's been great to grow the meetup, you know, and keep that in, you know, in growing, it's like there's a few of the core features that's like, this can't go away. You know, like, we have to be, otherwise it's just going to turn into any other like business, whatever, networking possibly thing, you know, but it's on our banner. Like, I could show you a picture later, but like on the banner that we retract, you know, and it says like, get helpful feedback, you know, contribute your expertise. You know, we're like really trying to drive home that like the meetup is a place where it's like two directional, and like bury your ego is what it is. It's like, bury your ego. You're coming here to grow and to help other people grow, and that's the bottom line. And
for sure,
some people, I can tell when they show up, they can't handle that, but they just don't come back, and it's like, okay, well, maybe in the future you can come and benefit from this, you know?
That takes a different mentality, and that's exactly like that seminar I went to years ago. That was the big thing, is like figuring out what crap you're dealing with, you know, and how can you overcome that. And I think the biggest thing is like getting your ego out of the way, like you said, you know, and really addressing things and figuring out how to move forward from there.
It's weird when you realize that your ego is like a protective mechanism of sorts.
It is.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's just like any other protective mechanism that it's really good in certain situations, but that doesn't mean you want it there all the time. You know, it's like anything. Anger is really good when you need to be angry. But it's a terrible thing if the situation doesn't call for anger. You know,
it's like our fight or flight instinct, you know, like back in the day when a caveman would have to kill a whatever, you know, or he was going to die. Like, that's an amazing thing that we have inside of us, but we wouldn't want to live in that 24/7.
No,
it would be destructive.
Hell.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's fantastic. How deep are we in this thing?
We're 50 minutes in.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Well, we'll start to wrap it up.
Okay.
So the name of your YouTube channel is?
The Handyman Journey.
The name of your overall business is?
Honestly, Handyman.
Awesome. And the name of your book is?
Handyman Marketing Handbook.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
And so the consulting business is the Handyman Journey Consulting Business. So that's like the brand for that.
Do you have a simple URL? Or like
handymanjourney.com.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. And you're on all the platforms, Facebook. What are you on?
Yeah, Handyman Journey's on Facebook, Instagram, not Twitter.
Cool.
YouTube, stuff like that.
Have you thought about doing Facebook groups yet?
What do you mean by Facebook groups?
Like starting your own Facebook group.
Well, we have a Facebook group. Like, shortly after I started the YouTube channel, I started, and that's kind of how I came up with the Handyman Journey Consulting business. I started this Handyman Journey Mastermind group on Facebook, and I just invited people to join, like, as a forum, you know, and that birthed into it. So that group is like, I think we have 3,200 people in there.
Oh, so that's one of the more mature, like, portions.
That's been, and that is just absolutely amazing. I mean, there's people that post on that every day just about their daily handyman journey, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so before we go, do you have any tips for somebody who might want to incorporate having a YouTube channel into their business, as far as general direction and how you might approach it? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking on the level of documentation, sharing knowledge, that type of stuff. Nothing overly specific, I mean, you got 20,000 followers, like you've done something. And consistency sounds like it's a part of it.
Consistency was a huge part. I mean, and I think that's probably the biggest thing is find out what people want to see and what people want to hear and give them that,
That's true.
And I think that's the key. So if you, I don't really have an example, but like if you are in a business and you want to start a YouTube channel to help support that, what would people that are looking for your services want to see on YouTube? Right. What are they searching? Because YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world.
Right.
So how can you use it? I mean, it's one great thing to create good content that grabs people, but what is, like, you also got to create evergreen content. So what are people going to search for? Like I have a friend.
Can you define that for the audience, evergreen content?
Evergreen content's like content that will be there forever that people can always search for. Like, for instance, how to fix your ice maker in your fridge, in a Whirlpool fridge, right? Like, I made a video a year ago, and that's like one of my most popular videos because that particular refrigerator, the ice maker, always poops out, you know? And so even homeowners are searching that. So find out what people are like. I got a gal who she's a school teacher, and she's created, she's a school teacher, but she has a passion of helping people like find jobs.
Okay.
And so she's created evergreen content on YouTube of like how to write a resume, or what kind of things to put in a resume. Like these are things that people are always going to search for. Or like, for instance, if it's maybe a YouTube channel like how to start a podcast. Right. Because if we don't know how to start a podcast, we're going to YouTube that. Right. That's evergreen content.
Got it.
So that would be and like, I love the thing like Peter McKinnon, he's also another big YouTuber. And there was this thing going around a few years ago of the lemon challenge. I don't know if you heard about that, where you had to bite a lemon and I think hold it in your mouth for a little while, right? So, and Peter McKinnon was tagged in this, and he wanted to do, he had this big elaborate thing where he was going to like throw this lemon and chase it, chase it like through a river, chase it over a mountain, chase it through a grocery store. But he had to record it all this, so it was going to be a really high-end
complicated
video
production,
And he kept telling his wife, he's like, I really want to do this, but the sun's going down, and like he had all these excuses. And his wife turned to him and says, chase the freaking lemon, Right. And so I think that's the biggest thing, and my wife has told me that countless times since that, is like, chase the freaking lemon. So if you want to do something, just chase it, do it. Right. And if it doesn't pan out, then learn something from it and, change and adapt. I think that's the biggest thing about entrepreneurship. Right.
Well, I think that's a perfect little cherry on top of the episode.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Alan.
Awesome.
It was a pleasure having a conversation.
That's it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys so much. It's great.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast, everyone. If you liked the episode today, be sure to subscribe to keep us in your podcast lineup. If you're interested in being a guest on the show or sponsoring the show, reach out to us at auburnbusinessventures.com.